Our tattered and tired group walked up the rocky path we had stumbled upon, just a short distance from where Von Pack found the entrance to the cave. Jake was in the back, still feeling sluggish from the paralytic bite of that creature. Von Pack was riding on my familiar. Well, he was less riding on and more lying flat in my familiar's saddle, half passed out from mana exhaustion. I still can't believe it, Jake mumbled. Believe what? Sumer asked, from his shoulder saddle. That's perfectly safe. He stopped talking and looked at several large rocks rolling down the side of the mountain and falling off of the side of a sheer cliff, with a huge crack of a breaking branch as they hit the ground below. Well, mostly safe path was just a few meters past the entrance of that cave. Von Pack groaned. I couldn't tell if he was agreeing or cursing, but he did whatever it was with what sounded like annoyance. How are you feeling, Jake? I asked. Barely, he replied. I was confused by his response. What do you mean? I wondered. Barely. I can barely feel anything, except for tingling like pins and needles, he said. Where is the tingling? Maybe I can hear you a bit more, Sumer offered. Just a few places. My hands, my arms, my legs, feet, chest, back, head, face, and, oh yeah, my tongue. Can't forget that, he said. I'm sorry for bringing you there, Jake, Sumer said. Her head lowered regretfully. Don't worry about it. You didn't know that cave was filled with chupacabra, Jake reassured her. Von Pack groaned intelligibly. His face pressed firmly into the corner of Argos' saddle. What? Sumer asked. Von Pack raised his head and spoke louder and more clearly. I thought you said they were called echoes, he asked, then lowered his head again. A chupacabra is, well, it's like, oh, forget it. I'm too out of it right now. Let's just call them echoes, Jake said, downtrodden. We all walked in silence for a while, slowly following the twisting and turning hill. The POV of the drill instructor. I was perched in my room when my assistant yelled that another group was spotted coming up the path. I quickly made my way outside and confirmed it was in fact Team 4, which consisted of Toman and recruits 7 and 8. They seemed happy upon their familiars' backs, and I could see why. The named new man called Toman had a silver band around his neck. They came striding into town like they were hot stuff. Hello, drill instructor, Toman said. Here is our band, sir. The other two removed the band from his neck, and one brought it to me. And only a few minutes till nightfall. Not bad for 3rd place, I told him. Team 4 should be proud. He seemed taken aback, like I had just pecked his head. 3rd, sir? Are you telling me 2 other teams came before us? He almost whined. Yes, teams 1 and 2 have both already arrived, I explained. At least we aren't last, one of his team members said. Yeah, we don't have to wake up early for more training, the other agreed. Toman looked at his comrades in disgust. If we had, he stuttered. His head fell forward. Let's just go get some sleep. I don't care anymore. They walked away, probably feeling defeated based on Toman's response. I wonder what happened to them, my assistant asked. Dragon's Hoard is filled with any number of dangerous creatures. They most likely had a tough time with some of them, I said, and then flew back to my room to wait for the next and final group to arrive. I wonder what had taken Group 3 so long. We had a Viking after all. POV of Jake. It took 2 hours, but the last of the paralysis had finally worn off, just in time too, because all 3 of my teammates were perched somewhere on my body as I climbed up a steep hill. All of their familiars were either too tired to continue, or couldn't be summoned due to lack of mana. Night fell over an hour ago, and I was maintaining a fireball a few meters above us to light the way. Most of the creatures on this mountain were nocturnal apparently, so the giant ball of fire came in handy keeping them away. None of the beasts came close enough to see clearly, thankfully. How are you doing, Jake? Sumer asked. I'm fine, can you guys see okay? I asked. Numi didn't have particularly good vision at night. Well enough, Vindica said sleepily. Von Pack didn't respond, because he was completely asleep. Our journey up the mountain continued for another 30 minutes before I finally saw what we had been looking for. The top. Finally, I said, and collapsed to my knees exhausted. Von Pack fell to the ground and woke up yelling. Ah, what's going on? He said, and flapped around for a second before finally getting to a standing position. We're at the top, Sumer said, as she and Sumer fluttered slowly to the ground. Oh, good, finally, Von Pack said, settling his standing feathers back down to his body. You guys can start looking for those bands. I'm going to rest, I said, and lay down on the grass. The heat from my fireball was incredibly soothing, and it wasn't long before I drifted off to sleep. Suma's POV. Von Pack, Vindica and I all flew in separate directions searching for the silver bands. Jake's fire spell was bright, but it wasn't enough by itself to illuminate an entire mountaintop, so we were literally searching in the dark as most of us were too tired or drained of mana to cast our own fire spells. I didn't know how the others were doing, but if they were having as hard a time as I was, then we would be on this mountain for a while. In the darkness, the shadows all started to blend together, so much so that I nearly flew into boulders on 2 separate occasions. We searched for 10 minutes before finally I heard Von Pack's voice call out. "I found it!" he shouted. I flew over to his location to see for myself, and there it was. A single band wrapped around a metal pole in the ground. We couldn't undo the band's knot with magic, as you need mana for that, so we each carefully grabbed it with beaks and undid it. We crossed over and under one another like some kind of serpent twisting around in its death throes. In the end, however, we were able to undo it. Once it was free, we looked at it for a moment. Well, we tried to anyway. "Is it getting darker?" I asked. "Your familiar must be running out of mana," Von Pack suggested. "We'd better get back to him." As he was saying that, suddenly it became bright again. "What in Abmosia?" Vindica wondered. Confused, we all flew back to Jake and saw him still lying on the ground. Above him was a fire spell, and it seemed to be slowly shifting in size, getting smaller and larger every few moments. "Jake, what are you doing with that fire spell?" I asked, but he didn't answer. However, there was a strange noise he was making. I flew over to beside his and realized he was asleep. "He's asleep," I told the others quietly. "But he is making noise, and his fire spell is still active," Von Pack pointed out. They are in rhythm," Vindica said. "What are?" I asked. "His breathing and the fire spell," she said. "The spelling growing and shrinking in time with his breathing." I stopped to watch the two for a moment, and she was right. As Jake breathed in, the spell got larger. When he breathed out, it shrunk. "How is he doing that?" Von Pack wondered. "Which part?" I wondered. "All of it. How is he maintaining a spell while asleep, and how is he making it keep in time with his breathing?" he wondered. "Well, I didn't call him Sentinel for nothing," I said. "We have the band now. Should we wake him?" Vindica asked. I think we should let him sleep." "We will come in last and have to wake up early if we don't hurry," Von Pack reminded us. "I think we are already going to have to do that," I said. Von Pack sighed. "You're probably right, but we still can't stay on Dragon's Hoard of all places overnight." "Why not? Jake's spell is producing enough heat to keep us warm and enough light to keep any beast away," Vindica pointed out. "We could at least get a few hours of sleep before going all the way back down." "What if he runs out of mana before sunrise?" Von Pack argued. "Unlikely," I said. "His mana capacity is huge, and even if he was constantly outputting mana, which he isn't, he is just maintaining a spell he already cast. Then it would still take over an hour for him to run out of mana." "Over an hour?" Vindica asked, stunned. "His life force density must be staggering, and I can't even imagine his mana reservoir." "Have you ever had it measured?" Von Pack asked. "Actually, we have. His life force is 500 Kelma and about 60 Dalma. He also has a mana reservoir of 915, I told him. They both stood in stunned silence, probably deciding if they actually believed such staggering figures. "How? Just how?" Von Pack wondered. Vindica stayed quiet for a moment longer. She seemed to be deep in thought. "Suma, I don't mean to... It's just... well..." She stopped herself, like she regretted saying anything in the first place. "What is it?" I asked. "There are rumours. I didn't believe them, not until you said. But I want you to know I don't care about them, even if they are true," she stuttered out. "Rumours? What rumours?" I questioned. "I don't want... and I don't mean to be," she tried to say, but Von Pack cut her off. "She means the rumours about your familiar. Jake. Being a Viking,"